Hello friends, today's story is Clifford the Big Red Dog and the Big Island Race. It was story time on Birdwell Island. Mrs. Clayton, the librarian, was reading to Emily Elizabeth, Clifford and their friend Samantha. The story was about astronauts on a mission to the red planet Mars. I wish we could go into space, Samantha said. Let's go on a mission to Mars, Emily Elizabeth exclaimed. Just then, the girls' friends Jack and Pablo skated past. We loved your space book, Mrs. Clayton, Pablo called. We are going to be the first astronauts on Mars, Emily Elizabeth told them. Not if we get there first, Jack grinned. It's a space race, Emily Elizabeth declared. The first team to bring back a redstone from Mars wins. Jack hopped onto his skateboard. Pablo gripped the handles of his scooter. Emily Elizabeth and Samantha climbed into Clifford's back. Astronauts ready? Mrs. Clayton asked. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Whoosh! The friends were off and the space race was on. Clifford was quick, but Pablo and Jack whizzed past them down the hill. They're getting ahead, cried Samantha. Don't worry, said Emily Elizabeth. We have a big red rocket. Clifford, it's time to blast off. But just then, Clifford spotted a man with tasty-looking sandwich. His tummy rumbled. Clifford, there is no time for treat right now, Emily Elizabeth yelled as Clifford veered towards the sandwich. Clifford knew Emily Elizabeth was right. A real astronaut wouldn't stop for a snack in the middle of a mission. With a burst of speed, Clifford caught up to Jack and Pablo. Now the friends were nose and nose, neck and neck, scooter and tail. Tweet! Miss Ellerby, the Birdwell Island crossing guard, blew her whistle. No scooting or skating in the crosswalk, Miss Ellerby warned the boys. And no running on the sidewalk, Clifford. Yes, Miss Ellerby, the children said reluctantly. The friends started on their way again. Miss Ellerby watching them, their race was super slow. That was until they reached the park. Then it was go time. Clifford's doggy pals, Bailey and Tucker, were playing in the park. Hey Clifford, do you want to come play with us? They called. I can't play now, Clifford yelled. I'm on a mission to Mars. I don't see Jack and Pablo, Samantha realized. We must be winning. Clifford panted. He was getting thirsty. Clifford needs to refuel, Emily Elizabeth told Samantha. Let's make a quick space station stop at my parents' shop. At the seashell souvenir store, Clifford lapped up water from a dog bowl, while Emily Elizabeth and Samantha borrowed some binoculars. Hi, honey, Emily Elizabeth's parents waved at the girls. No time to talk, Emily Elizabeth explained. We are racing Jack and Pablo to Mars. Well, you'd better hurry, Emily Elizabeth's dad pointed. Jack and Pablo are sailing away on their spaceship. We have to beat them, Emily Elizabeth exclaimed. Come on, I know a shortcut. Be back on Earth in time for dinner, her dad called. Emily Elizabeth led Clifford up a steep, rocky hill. It was hard for the big red dog to balance with so many slipping, sliding rocks. This galaxy sure looks a lot like Rocky Point, Samantha said. Soon the friends had made it over the rocky terrain and slid safely down to the sand dunes on the other side. Had their shortcut worked? Emily Elizabeth looked out over the bay through her binoculars. There! The red shores of Mars were in sight. But so were Jack and Pablo. They're almost at the red rocks on the beach. Emily Elizabeth cried. They're going to reach Mars before we do. Groof! Not if I can help it, Clifford told Emily Elizabeth. The big red dog rocketed across the sand dunes. His paws sent sand flying everywhere. Go, Clifford, go! Emily Elizabeth and Samantha cheered. Jack and Pablo tied up their boat just as Clifford reached the last sand dune. They are going to make a run for it, Emily Elizabeth shouted. But we can win if we really run fast. Go, Clifford! Clifford took a flying leap off the sand dune, but when he landed, his legs sunk straight into the sticky Martian mud. Emily Elizabeth tried to push Clifford out, but it was no use. He was trapped. Come on, Emily Elizabeth, Samantha said. We have to run. Emily Elizabeth wanted to win, but not without her best friend. It's not worth winning if I have to leave Clifford behind, she said. Suddenly, Jack and Pablo ran up. I guess you two win, Emily Elizabeth said. Clifford stuck. Racing is no fun if there's no one to race against, Pablo said. We'll help you instead. Together the friends pushed and pulled, tugged and towed. It wasn't long before Clifford, the big red rocket, was out of the mud and back into orbit. As the sun set, the brave explorers headed home. Welcome back, astronauts, Mrs. Clayton greeted them. The friends proudly produced their Martian treasure, a red rock straight from the surface of Mars, they said. This is out of this world, Mrs. Clayton said, impressed. But which team won the race? Emily smiled at her friends. When you all work together, she said, everybody wins.